So remember Blue Protocol? It flopped hard, servers went down, and most people assumed that was the end of it. But here we are in 2025 and suddenly it's back. Why? Because the rights to the game were bought by Shanghai Bokura, who completely rebuilt it from the ground up and are relaunching it under a new name, somewhat, Blue Protocol Star Resonance. And this isn't just a rebrand, this is basically a Realm Reborn situation. It's a new game built on the ashes of the old one, and launch is right around the corner on October 9th, the global launch, that is. Now, if you've seen my MMO coverage before, you know I like to break these overviews down systematically. I finally solidified the skeleton of these overviews into what I call the 12 pillars that I will be using for this video and every MMO overview video like this one going forward. I think by following this structure, I'll be able to cover everything that is expected out of a good overview video. If you've never played Blue Protocol back in the day, don't worry, this isn't a direct comparison video. I played the original Blue Protocol and I've been playing on the Chinese version as well, which is the version that we're going to get in the West. So I am going to draw a couple of parallels, but aside from that, we're just good to jump into it. So let's start with the first pillar, classes and combat. Blue Protocol Star Resonance features a familiar action combat system that feels right at home within the genre. The combat itself features non-targeted action combat with the ability to iframe attacks. When the original version launched, it featured only 5 playable classes and all of them were DPS. Star Resonance expand that roster to 8 classes now and introduces a proper trinity system, which means the game now includes healers, tanks, and DPS, giving group content much more structure and variety. Each class also comes with 2 subspecializations, which can be swapped between freely. These don't completely redefine the class identity, but they do change its playstyle, similar to Lost Ark's class engravings. There's no penalty or limitation for switching between them, so players can experiment as much as they want. In terms of build progression, players start with a base passive tree that's filled out entirely through normal play. Once that's done, the secondary passive tree unlocks, and that's where class customization actually begins. This tree requires a bit more thought, since it allows you to tailor your bonuses to match your preferred playstyle. Nothing in the system is permanent, however, so you can freely adjust your choices at any time. For active abilities, each class has a selection of skills to choose from, and players can equip 4 of them on their hotbar. Alongside those, you also have your basic attacks and your ultimate ability. Skills can be leveled up using the standard in-game silver currency to increase their power. They can also be further enhanced with class-specific cards, which provide an additional layer of progression. These cards can be earned through many different sources, including in-game vendors, events, and general content rewards, and each skill can be advanced up to a specific cap. This part might get a groan out of some of you, but the game does feature auto-combat. Your character will automatically kill all enemies within a small circle around itself, but with zero rhyme or reason. As you can see, the moment I turn it on, it just rips the alt and imagines on one target. There are optional side quests that ask you to kill a few dozen mobs for some rewards, and in my mind, that's the kind of thing that this auto-combat system is for. Put your character next to a bunch of mobs and let the game face roll all of your skills while you go get a drink. In raids and dungeons, it won't do mechanics for you or walk you out of the fire or out of a puddle. It'll let you die. It's there purely to mash your buttons for you, off cooldown on the closest red target. Just like the old Blue Protocol, you can play every class on a single character. However, unlike before, Star Resonance now allows you to carry over some of your progress even when switching classes. You keep your overall character level, your base passive tree, your gear, although your gear stats might not always suit your new class, and you'll still need to redo certain aspects, specifically the class advancement cards and skill levels. Reinvesting in those can become expensive at higher levels, though it's manageable early on. So don't be afraid to experiment early while it is still cheap, so it only gets expensive later on when you get into the realm of actual dedication to the class and not just trying it out. Your progress on the advanced passive tree also carries over in part. The regular talent points remain unlocked, but the major passive nodes, the ones that define your build, require arcane inscriptions tied to your class's archetype. These inscriptions are earned naturally through regular play in various means, but one of the sources is called the Trial Road. It's a solo tower mode that provides arcane inscriptions and a variety of other rewards. Each set of trials is designed around your role. DPS classes focus on clearing enemies under a certain amount of time, and healers have to maintain their NPC party's health above a certain HP percentage for the duration of the fight. Customization. If you played the original Blue Protocol, character customization in Star Resonance will look very familiar. It's essentially the same system, but expanded with a few more options across the board. You'll find wider selection of hairstyles, eye shapes, dye variations, stuff like that. New teeth. You get shark teeth now. Both male and female characters can choose between two body types, one that's smaller and more lanky and another that's taller and bulkier. There are also a few height and body proportion sliders available, but the changes they make are relatively subtle, enough to personalize your character without breaking the overall style of the game, so we're not going to have a repeat of the Chrono Odyssey situation in this. And of course, the good news, classes are not gender locked because you can play every class on the same character. Or would that make them gender locked? Because all the classes are on the same character? I don't know. Leveling. If you played the original Blue Protocol, this is where I have some genuinely good news. The old adventure journal system is gone! In Star Residence, leveling follows a much more traditional style of just following a main quest. The entire story has been completely revamped. It features different characters, a different narrative, and new cutscenes. Everything's completely different. That being said, this section also contains one of my two major concerns with the game. The main story quest is time-gated. On launch day, you'll be able to progress through the story only up to a certain point, after which you'll need to wait until the daily reset to continue. If you've ever played Crystal of Atlan, it works similarly, although it's slightly better here because Star Residence doesn't have an energy system attached to it. It's purely a timed lockout for the main story quest. The reasoning behind the system is to narrow down the progression gap between hardcore players and casual players. Whether you see that as a positive or a negative is up to you, but the system existed in both Chinese version and the Western closed beta. I saw them in both versions myself, so it is very likely to be in our version as well. However, there are at least two silver linings here. The first one is that the time gating is temporary. It's meant only for the early period after launch, and it will be removed supposedly later once the initial bottleneck is no longer needed in the developer's eyes. Second, Blue Protocol Star Residence isn't a game where you need to hit max level before you can actually play in a meaningful way. While some features are locked behind levels, those thresholds are usually pretty low, and a lot of the core content becomes available fairly early. You'll be engaging with the same types of activities you'll do at Endgame, just at lower difficulty tiers. And once you hit that story bottleneck, you'll still have plenty of stuff to do. The game offers a large amount of side activities and alternate progression systems, enough to keep playing all the way into reset, to be honest. But yes, I completely understand the frustration some players will feel about being forced to wait. I'm right there with you about that too. I don't like that either. PvE content. Since we've already talked about how Star Residence lets you access a lot of its content early, let's go over the different types of PvE activities available. Don't worry, I won't spoil specific story moments or mechanics, so your sense of discovery is safe with me. Before listing the content, I need to emphasize something that's both my own opinion and one that's widely shared by players who have tried both versions. The dungeons in Star Residence are a lot more fun this time around. They're faster to complete, they're more engaging, they're much more streamlined. There's cooperation between party members, there's environmental interaction to resolve mechanics, or careful attention to debuffs. All of that is required to actually resolve mechanics, and it goes far beyond than just not standing in a puddle. Even from the very first dungeon you unlock, you'll notice that it expects coordination and awareness. The game doesn't treat early dungeons as mindless tutorials, and lower level players as babies. They're enjoyable and rewarding right from the start. Overall, the quality and feel of the PvE content are significantly improved compared to the old Blue Protocol, in my opinion, and that of a lot of others. The majority of PvE content revolves around party dungeons, and there are quite a few of them. Each dungeon comes with 3 difficulty settings: normal, hard, and master. As you'd expect, the higher difficulties bring tougher mechanics, harder hitting enemies, and better loot. You can choose to run these dungeons in several ways. You can form your own party, you can queue up and matchmake with random players, or you can bring NPC companions into the run if you want to try out and get a feel for the mechanics before actually doing it with real people. You can run these dungeons as many times as you like, and even the very first one can drop meaningful gear upgrades for you. Loot is RNG based, with each dungeon dropping items of specific gear slots. The drop rates are generous. It's quite rare to walk away empty-handed, but if you do end up dropping something that you don't need one too many times, you can dismantle it for material that you can then use at an NPC to exchange for specific gear pieces that you're actually looking for. There's also another party-based dungeon called Unstable Space. This one drops gear and materials used for progression. It's on the easier side and automatically scales its difficulty based on your party size and equipment score, and you can complete this one twice a day. Beyond that, there's a 20-player raid available once per day. It rewards you with bound shop currency and additional currency that can be spent in a raid-specific shop filled with various useful items. I know this sounds like a lot of stuff to do per day, but I mentioned earlier that this stuff is a lot more streamlined now. So even though I'm saying that it's very fun, overall, these are very, very fast runs. So don't worry, don't let it overload you. Another major piece of PvE content is the team-based tower, an instanced activity that gives completion rewards every few sets of floors all the way to floor 60. The tower progresses gradually over time, with new floors unlocking periodically before eventually resetting as part of seasonal rotation. This one's worth noting because it requires actual gear progression, making it more of an endgame oriented challenge. So you're not going to be touching that one until a little bit later, but it's something to look forward to. Outside of instance content, the open world is full of elite bosses that can drop legendary gear upon defeat. Every day, players receive 2 keys that can be used for extra loot when killing these elites. Those key-based rewards include materials used to craft imagines, which are powerful skills that either transform your character or summon the creature that imagine represents. The benefits of these imagines vary, ranging from straight damage bursts to shields, heals, buffs, anything. There's a lot of them. You can still farm elites without using keys, but the drop chance for their gear when you do that is quite low, making this a great long-term grind for dedicated players who enjoy min-maxing, because this is not necessary to do, but it is something to do if you're somebody who enjoys min-maxing your stats. And that's not even all the PvE content the game has. There are guild bosses, there's hunting journals, there's story rewind solo dungeons that grant one-time rewards. For the sake of keeping this video as concise as possible, I won't go into those in detail. They're smaller in scale, but still contribute to your overall progression. Now let's talk about PvP. There isn't any. It's a purely PvE game. All right, moving on. Gearing systems. There are several systems in Star Resonance that contribute to your vertical progression, but if you played Old Blue Protocol, you can relax. The old weapon enhancement system is completely gone. The enhancement system is much simpler. It starts with a guaranteed success rate at lower levels, and the percentage slowly decreases as you continue upgrading. The good news is that, at least for now, the lowest it can drop to is 50%. So it quite literally is a coin flip. One of the biggest improvements is that enhancement now applies to gear slots, not to the individual pieces of gear. So for example, if you upgrade your weapon to +4 and later on you get a new weapon that's better than that one, and you equip that new weapon inherits the +1 enhancement. The same logic applies to all of your gear pieces, your helmet, your chest, everything, meaning that your progression is never wasted when you find an upgrade. The system that actually affects the gear itself is called reforging. Every piece of equipment drops with a quality level that can range up to a maximum of 100. You use special reforged stones to increase that quality value until it reaches the cap for that item, improving its base stats along the way. A fantastic feature here is that when you dismantle that piece of gear, all the reforged stones you've invested into it to raise it up to the max level of quality are fully refunded. The only thing that you don't get back are the stones that you spend tapping the piece of gear after you've already maxed out the refinement level. The reason you would continue to do that is because there's one line that is RNG, and it changes every time you click. So even after you reach 100% or 80% or whatever is the maximum that that piece of gear is capped at, you might want to click it a couple times more just to find a better stat that fits your class or build better. Beyond enhancement and reforging, gear can also be embedded with gems that grant additional effects. Gems come in different rarities and can either be purchased from the marketplace or crafted through professions. Each gem's main stat is predetermined by its color, while its secondary mini-stat depends on its shape. But it's all within your control because you just choose which color and shape to craft, so it's not RNG. And since gems are tied to crafting and professions, it's a perfect time to move into the next section, crafting and gathering. I'll keep this section brief since it's an area that could easily fill an entire separate dedicated video, but Star Resonance features 9 professions, some focused on gathering resources and others centered on crafting items from those materials. You can unlock all 9, but you'll need to manage your mastery points, which accumulate slowly over time. Early on, that means choosing a few professions to specialize in and investing mastery there strategically. As your mastery grows, you unlock new recipes and become more efficient in both gathering and crafting. There is an energy system tied to life skilling called Focus, but you have the option of choosing whether or not you want to use it. Items gathered or crafted without using Focus will be bound to your character, meaning you can't sell them on the marketplace, though they're perfectly fine for personal use. If you want to craft a gem to equip for yourself, you can just do it that way. Items made with Focus, of course, on the other hand, are tradable, allowing you to profit from your work. However, Recipes that are unlocked through mastery points always require focus to craft. They're even called focus recipes. This naturally limits the flow of high-value items and materials into the market and helps stabilize their worth. There are no tools to manage, and resource nodes are easy to track across the world, keeping the system simple and accessible. Overall, life scaling plays an important role in Star Residence. Across its 9 professions, you can craft things like costume dyes, housing furniture, gear, enhancement materials, toys, food buffs, consumables, and of course the gems that we mentioned earlier. As you set out to gather materials in the world, you will traverse the world of Star Residence, so let's talk about that next. The world of Star Residence is far more seamless this time around. Loading screens only appear when moving between very, very large areas or traveling to and from the main hub city. As large as the world is, it's designed with plenty of teleport nodes, so the game doesn't force you to explore on foot if you don't want to. As you travel, you'll find treasure chests scattered across the environment. These come in different rarities and reward you with useful items. Your monster log also provides rewards for defeating a certain number of each enemy type, ranging from smaller mobs to world bosses, which respawn regularly throughout the world. Traversal is smooth and accessible. Beyond your mount, you can use multiple jumps to reach distant areas, run along walls, dodge in midair, and glide across open spaces. These actions, some of these consume stamina, but only in small amounts, so it's pretty rare to completely run out of stamina unless you're in combat. Visually, the game retains much of the artistic charm that defined the original Blue Protocol. However, Shanghai Bokura slightly adjusted the art style to make the game a little bit more colorful and a little bit more bubbly. Now let's talk about the Endgame Loop. What is your daily and weekly checklist, so to speak, going to look like once you've settled into the game? A big part of the section overlaps with what we discussed in the PvE Content section, of course. Since Star Residence is actually purely a PvE focused game, a large portion of your gear and character progression will come from running those dungeons and raids. Those activities make up a significant part of your daily and weekly gameplay loop. Outside of that though, you'll have 3 daily commission quests, your standard dailies. You can complete 3 per day, but if you miss a day, they stack up to a maximum of 9, allowing you to catch up over a 3-day window. These commissions are simple and convenient. They teleport you directly to the objective, and completing them rewards you with a currency that can be spent in a shop filled with both cosmetic and progression-related items. Next is your daily activity menu, which will feel familiar to anyone who's played gacha games. It's a list of various tasks, things like completing dungeons, gathering something, or even using a specific emote. As you complete these tasks, you earn additional rewards. The list of options is broad enough to where you will very likely just complete it naturally every single day just by playing the game. Between your dailies, your daily dungeons, and your world boss keys, that covers most of what you'll be doing on a typical day. On the weekly side of things, your guild will have lockout bosses that can be completed for extra rewards. I'll go over guilds in more details later. You'll also be contributing to Pioneer Commendation. It's a system that tracks your activity across PvE and life-scaling content. You will complete these passively if you play actively because they are also very broad and general, and when the weekly reset hits, you can claim a selection of gear and material rewards. It functions similarly to the weekly mission board systems, like in World of Warcraft or Throne of Liberty. Upon weekly reset, this is mainly a cherry on top to reward you for your hard work the past week. This isn't an exhaustive list of everything in the game, but it gives you a clear idea of what your daily routine will look like. Star Residence also includes a recommended gameplay menu that conveniently lists all the content you can engage with, organized by lockout type and category, and as you'll see, there's a lot to do. Monetization. Let's talk about a hard topic. And if you skip to this part, at least give me a like. The shop of Star Residence features a myriad of cosmetics, most of which can be bought outright for a flat price. The cash shop currency is called Rose Gems, and there are bound and unbound ones. Unbound Rose Gems are the direct currency charged with real money and can buy you most of stuff on the shop, but there are also a multitude of skins you can buy for bound currency as well. And this bound currency is accumulated through just about every activity in the game. First time clears, completion rewards, achievements, quests, treasure chests, dailies, even maintenance compensation all award you with these bound rose gems. Think of unbound rose gems as royal crystals and bound ones as blue crystals if you've played Lost Ark before. There's a shop where you can buy materials for gear and class progression, but those things can only be bought strictly with bound currency. None of it is locked behind purely paid currency. Now there are 2 gacha banners on the shop. One for a limited skin and one for a mount. Don't worry, it's not Crystal of Atlan. These skins don't have any stats on them. None of the skins have any stats on them. They're purely cosmetic, and the particular skin is on a gacha banner because typically it just looks a little bit fancier. The gacha banners use tokens that can be bought with unbound rose gems, pretty standard, but some in-game vendors allow you to buy gacha tokens with bound rose gems. Although what you get from the banner will also be bound to the character, so you won't be able to sell it on the market if you use the bound tokens. If you don't win the jackpot cosmetic, the loot table actually has a decent amount of other skins and accessories you can get as well, so it's not an all or nothing situation. And by the way, you can see that I have a pretty good amount of bound rose gems, and I haven't paid a dime in this game, and I haven't even been playing that actively. I played for about a week and a half actively every day when it came out, and I haven't logged in until very recently, so this is just over that time. And I've also already bought 2 full sets of skins from the shop with bound rose gems before this, so my point is that if you play the game consistently, you get quite a bit of them. Although a big chunk is front-loaded from launch rewards and one-time completion rewards. But of course, skins aren't the only way the game is monetized. You didn't really think it was all sunshine and rainbows, right? No, of course you didn't. You're an MMO player. The game also features one of those cheap daily login things that every gacha game under the sun has. You buy this little sub for like $5 or $7 and it gives you some unbound currency up front, and every day for 30 days it gives you a little bit of bound currency and silver for logging in. Pretty standard stuff. And of course, the game also features a battle pass with a free and premium tier. It gives you pretty standard stuff that you would expect from a battle pass: dyes, consumables, silver, bound gacha pulls, some material boxes and RNG pouches with a skin as the featured completion reward. All pretty standard stuff you would expect out of a battle pass. So remember how at the beginning I said that the MSQ time gating was one of the 2 things that are my concerns? Well, here comes the second one. There is a 3rd gacha banner, and that one features Imagines, the skills that turn you into or summon a creature for various purposes in combat. Yeah. Now, you can still use bound currency to pull in this banner. As a matter of fact, you can only use bound currency to pull in this, which makes it a little bit better. There are also a lot of vendors from various activities you can buy more pulls from as well, and the banner has 2 pity systems. Moreover, from the list of possible Imagines on the banner, you actually get to pick which one you're after, so whenever it is that you do hit the jackpot, you will get the one that you're actually looking for. And another bit of silver lining with this is that these NPC Imagines aren't exclusive to the gacha banner. You can craft them using these legendary fragments. If you pull a legendary Imagine from the banner that isn't an NPC that's featured on the banner, you can dismantle them to get some of those fragments back. Moreover, those world boss keys I mentioned earlier can grant you some of those legendary fragments as well, but you do only get 2 keys per day. With the values you've seen on screen, in order to craft the NPC Imagine from the banner, you will need 300 of those legendary fragments. And the banner does stay for a long while, so it is fairly accessible and realistic to get this one eventually through active play. And of course, I've gotta say that you don't really need these Imagines for any of the content I've seen and done, but it's kind of a moot point because that doesn't really matter, right? I'm saying this because it is true. I do believe this, at least so far, but you and I both don't feel very good about a system like this existing in a game, no matter how approachable they make it. Personally, yes, I think it's slimy, especially considering that this banner doesn't even show up when you click on the gacha menu option. It's an NPC that sits in town that you have to manually go to, which makes me wonder if they purposely didn't make it obvious until you're already more invested in the game. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but I still plan to enjoy the game despite this, because I'd be lying if I said I haven't played much more heinously monetized games in the past for years. So, could it be worse? Yes, absolutely. But that doesn't make it ideal either. In the current MMO market, it could always be a lot worse. Horizontal. Oh wow, you're still here. That means you're still curious about the game. We made it through the monetization talk, so let's cleanse the palate and check out the horizontal and more casual content, because this is the part where Star Resonance actually has a lot of charm. The game's got a detailed photo mode with sliders for lighting, camera angles, depth of field, time of day, the whole package. There's a pile of emotes, some of which you can sync with other players, like dancing, posing, and even holding hands, if that's your thing. There are dozens of toys, glow sticks, bubble blowers, instruments, random little distractions you unlock just by playing. None of it is important, but it just adds personality. And this one's for my fishermen. Fishing in Star Residence isn't part of life skilling. You're not turning your catches into materials. You're filling out a journal that tracks what kind of fish you've caught based on location and time of day. Some fish are rare, some are massive, and as you level up your fishing journal, you unlock new rods and bait tuned for certain types of fish. Every now and then you'll put up some literal garbage from the ocean, and there's a recycling vendor who'll pay you for it. Fishing here feels less like an MMO system and more like something out of Animal Crossing or web fishing, which, by the way, if you like this sort of thing and you haven't played web fishing, do yourself a favor. Anyway, it's a chill activity that's totally skippable if it's not your vibe, but if you enjoy collecting things, you'll love it. And hey, if you ever spot me out there fishing, say hi. Because you will spot me out there fishing. Now, back in the old Blue Protocol, guilds were basically just a tag over your name and an extra chat window. Now, it's an actual system. Guilds have a weekly activity bar that fills as members just play the game, giving everyone shared rewards. There are even guild-exclusive bosses and a massive guild hall. You've got wall displays for your screenshots, a vendor that sells items for guild currency, a leisure area, a photo booth where you can take selfies to use as your profile card, a fountain, a giant aquarium. It's like Bokura took a look at Bandai's version and said, what if we made guilds actually feel like communities instead of vending machines? I know a lot of people love housing in MMOs. I'm people. It's me. Your house is instanced, unlocked through a short quest, so no land rush nightmares here. We millennials finally get to live the fantasy of owning property. From the main menu, you can add roommates and set what they're allowed to do. As you interact with your house, it levels up, unlocking new furniture recipes, seeds, and space expansions both indoor and out. My house is level 2, which is basically what this looks like when you first unlock it. The outdoor area has a space for a little garden plot. You plant seeds, water them, wait, harvest, and repeat. And since I've been gone for a little bit, there's some trash around the yard that I can clean up myself or just ask my maid NPC to do it for me. The butler NPC gives you quick daily quests and rewards house currency, house experience, and some goodies. They're all easy turn-in quests, so you get them done right then and there. The house shop lets you spend that currency on everything from furniture blueprints and wallpapers to rugs, stairs, paintings, themed decor, whatever you want. Right over here is the crafting bench where you actually make your furniture. Materials are easy to get and there's no catch, it's just straightforward crafting. And now let's head inside. This is the starting interior zone, and no, I did not decorate it. The default furnishings come with it. The decorating UI is insane. You can change lighting color and intensity, decide how objects interact with each other, and freely move furniture anywhere. And I mean anywhere. If I want to make a table float above this plant, I can do that. It doesn't need to make sense. Which means, yes, people will 100% start clipping furniture together to make crazy designs. Final Fantasy XIV players, you already know how this goes. And that's pretty much the light-hearted social side of the game. It's cozy, it's creative, it's fun. Now, before we wrap up, let's talk about the developers and how they've been handling things so far, because that's where a lot of the story behind this relaunch really comes together. As mentioned earlier, Bandai Namco was the company that originally developed and published Blue Protocol, and they had plans for a Western release, but the game performed so poorly that it was shut down before it even got there. Don't worry though, that old version was a very different game. I'd honestly say that the only positive the original Blue Protocol had over Star Resonance was the fact that the soundtrack was made by Hiroyuki Sawano, and that's it. Everything else was clunkier, emptier, more grindy, and overall just a skeleton of what could have been. And listen, I love Bandai dearly. They gave me Gundam and Gunpla, but when it comes to games, let's just say I prefer the Gunpla more. Then came Shanghai Bokura, who basically pulled A Realm Reborn on Blue Protocol. Many people consider Star Resonance to be the version of Blue Protocol that it should have been from the start, the version people hoped for years ago. And the fact that Bokura was able to rebuild the entire game from the ground up and rework all these systems this thoroughly in just a couple of years probably has something to do with the fact that they're a subsidiary of Tencent, which means that they have the cash. In terms of communication, I'd say things have been looking pretty promising so far. During the Western closed beta, the developers initially planned a rebate system, basically a way to refund all money you've spent during the closed beta once the game officially launches, plus some extra currency on top as a thank you bonus to incentivize people to spend more. A lot of players pushed back, justifiably so, since it was a closed beta, only some people had access, and that gave them a spending advantage that didn't sit well with the wider community, and just the overall practice didn't either. And to their credit, Bokura actually listened. They walked the decision back, removing the extra bonus and keeping it as a simple refund system. You get back whatever you spent in the closed beta, no extras. It was a good example of an Eastern developer responding to Western criticism, which, let's be honest, isn't something we see very often. I also want to shout out Star Resonance Database, the long-standing community hub that's been maintaining guides and resources ever since the original Blue Protocol betas years ago. A few months back, Bokura's founder, Roy, actually reached out and gave them the opportunity to collect community questions for him to answer in an interview. It was a really cool gesture because it acknowledged the dedication of the community itself. A lot of good questions were asked, and I'll summarize a few key points here, but if you want the full details, I'll link the entire interview in the description, along with the official Star Resonance Database channels. Seriously, follow them on Twitter and join the Discord. If you want quick, reliable info and updates, that's the way to go. In the interview, Roy talks about how he used his years of experience as an MMO producer to create a game that fit his personal vision, a true anime fantasy MMORPG. And honestly, I think a lot of us have been waiting for exactly that. Not just another Genshin clone that's basically a single player with online features, but an actual MMO with an anime art style. After how much the original Blue Protocol disappointed people, Roy wanted to fulfill that original vision and give the project a real second chance. He explains his design philosophy as balancing hardcore and casual experiences, giving min-maxers the content they crave while making sure the casual players still feel included and rewarded. He also outlines a key principle behind Star Resonance that no matter when you decide to play the game, you should be able to jump in and experience the game pretty early without having to play months of catch-up. He emphasizes that the direction of the game will continue to be shaped by player feedback, which, in today's MMO landscape, is a bold promise, but a welcome one nonetheless. Of course, the topic of monetization came up as well. Roy was open about the fact that the game includes pay-for-convenience elements, but stated clearly that nothing in Star Resonance is locked behind mandatory or exclusive paywalls. The goal, according to him, is to maintain a model that sustains the company, because it's a free-to-play game, while offering small conveniences for players who have limited time to grind. Overall, Roy came across as genuine and confident, but I do encourage you to read the full interview because, like I said, it's quite long, and decide how much you trust this Roy guy. And that sums up this overview video. I hope you enjoyed the 12 pillars that I worked through. I hope the game sounds a lot better to you if you've played the old version of Blue Protocol. Let me know what stood out to you the most. Let me know what you think about what concerns you have and what things you're actually excited for, what looked cool to you. All the footage that's recorded in this video is recorded on the Chinese version, so if you see any weird codes or any weird broken text, that's because the translator is just having a seizure. I will be playing this game when it comes out in the West, which is just in a few days on October 9th. At twitch.tv/LaufieLOL. So if you have any more specific questions, since I played in China, come hang out, come ask questions, come watch, come party up, come join my dumbass guild that I'm probably gonna make. And I appreciate you watching all the way until the very end. I'll see you in the next one, and peace.